The alarm bells rang across Kepler Station like angry metal birds. Red lights flashed in every hallway, and the air itself seemed to buzz with fear. Commander Jake Morrison ran through the main corridor, his boots hitting the metal floor hard. Behind him, his security team tried to keep up. "What do we know?" Jake shouted into his radio. "Cargo Bay 7, sir," came the crackling reply. Something big got loose from the transport ship. Jake had seen many things in his 10 years running security on Kepler Station. The station was home to over 50,000 beings from across the galaxy. Every day brought new problems. Fights between traders, smugglers trying to hide illegal goods, and sometimes drunk aliens who got too wild at the bars. But the fear in his officer's voice told him this was different. Kepler Station was huge, like a metal city floating in space. It had shopping areas, homes, schools, and docks for thousands of ships. People came here to trade, to live, and to find work. Humans lived alongside the tall Zephyrians with their crystal-like skin that sparkled in the light. The Nebulan people breathed different air and wore special masks when they walked around. The hive speakers looked like giant insects but were smart and kind. Everyone got along most of the time. The station had rules, and Jake made sure people followed them. Today felt wrong from the moment he woke up. The cargo ship had arrived 3 hours ago. It was old and beat up, the kind that traders used when they couldn't afford better. The captain said he was carrying machine parts and food supplies. Normal stuff. Jake's team had scanned the ship like they always did. Everything looked fine. Now Jake wished he had looked harder. They reached Cargo Bay 7, and Jake saw his worst fears come true. The big metal doors were torn apart like paper. Thick chunks of steel lay scattered on the floor. Claw marks ran deep in the walls, and some kind of black liquid dripped from the ceiling. "Sir," whispered Officer Pete Clark, pointing inside the bay. "Look at the container." The shipping container was huge, big enough to hold a small house. Now it was split open like a broken egg. The metal sides had been pushed out from the inside, and Jake could see that whatever was in there had been strong enough to bend steel, like rubber. Dr. Lisa Campbell arrived running, her white coat flying behind her. She was the station's expert on alien animals and plants. If anyone could figure out what they were dealing with, it was her. "Jake, we need to evacuate this section right now," she said, breathing hard. "I've been reading about the cargo manifest. That container was supposed to hold old mining equipment, but I think someone lied." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. But he already knew he didn't want to hear the answer. Lisa pulled out her tablet and showed him a picture. It was a drawing of a creature that looked like it came from nightmares. 12 feet tall, covered in black scales that looked like armor, 6 arms, each ending in claws as long as kitchen knives, eyes that glowed like fire. "This is a Vorthak Warbeast," Lisa said quietly. "They were created by an alien race that died out 1,000 years ago. The Vorthak made these things to be perfect killers. They're stronger than any animal we know, smarter than most people think, and they're programmed to hunt and kill anything that lives." Jake felt his stomach drop. How many people know about these things? Not many. Most people think they're just stories, but if one is really here... Lisa looked around the destroyed cargo bay. "Jake, nothing we have can stop it. The old records say that entire armies couldn't bring down a single warbeast." A scream echoed from somewhere deeper in the station. Then another, and another. Jake grabbed his radio. "All units, this is Commander Morrison. We have a Code Black situation. I repeat, Code Black. Evacuate sections 5 through 12 immediately. This is not a drill." Code Black meant the worst kind of danger. It meant people were going to die, and there might be nothing anyone could do to stop it. The screaming got louder. Jake and his team ran toward the sound, their weapons ready. They knew their plasma guns probably wouldn't work, but they had to try. They found the first body in hallway C7. It had been a Zephyrian trader, someone Jake knew by name. The crystal person had been torn apart like a toy. Blood and crystal fragments covered the walls. "Sir," Officer Amy Zhang said, her voice shaking. "Look at the claw marks. They're huge." Jake studied the damage. The claws had cut through the Zephyrians, crystal skin like it was made of paper. If the creature could do that to someone with natural armor, what would it do to humans? More screams came from the residential area. Jake's team ran faster, but they were always one step behind the creature. Every time they reached a new location, they found more bodies and more destruction. The Warbeast was hunting. It moved through the station like it owned the place, killing anyone who got in its way. Jake saw what it did to a group of Nebulon merchants who had tried to hide in their shop. He saw how it had torn through a security checkpoint like the guards weren't even there. "It's learning," Lisa said as they stopped to catch their breath. "Look at the attack patterns, each one is different. It's figuring out how each species fights and adapting." Jake wiped sweat from his face. "How is that possible?" The Vorthak designed them to be perfect predators. They learn from every fight, every kill. By now it knows how to kill Zephyrians, Nebulons, and Hive Speakers. When it meets humans... She didn't finish the sentence. The station's speakers crackled to life. "All residents report to emergency shelters immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, all residents to emergency shelters." But Jake knew the shelters wouldn't help. The Warbeast was too strong, too smart. It would find a way in, and then it would kill everyone inside. They reached the main plaza just as the creature appeared. Jake had seen the pictures, but nothing had prepared him for the real thing. The Warbeast stood 12 feet tall, its black, scales reflecting the plaza's lights like a dark mirror. Its 6 arms moved independently, each one stronger than 3 humans put together. The claws were longer than Jake's forearm and sharp enough to cut through steel. But it was the eyes that made Jake's blood turn cold. They glowed like molten gold, and they were smart. This wasn't some wild animal acting on instinct. This was a thinking creature that enjoyed what it was doing. A group of alien families had been trying to reach the shelter when the Warbeast found them. Now they huddled together in the center of the plaza, adults trying to shield their children from the monster. The creature moved slowly like it was savoring the moment. It had them trapped, and it knew it. There was nowhere for them to run. Jake raised his weapon. "Everyone fire!" The plasma bolts hit the Warbeast and bounced off its scales like raindrops. The creature turned its burning eyes toward Jake and his team. For a moment, Jake thought he saw something like amusement in those terrible eyes. Then the Warbeast smiled, showing rows of teeth like broken glass. The families in the plaza screamed as the creature raised its claws, preparing to end their lives. Jake and his team kept firing, but their weapons were useless. They could only watch as the perfect killing machine prepared for its next slaughter. Time seemed to slow down. Jake saw the terror in the aliens' eyes. He saw children clinging to their parents. He saw the Warbeast enjoying their fear, and he knew that in a few seconds they would all be dead. The Zephyrian Crystal Guard arrived on Kepler Station like shining angels. Their ship was beautiful, made of the same crystal material as their bodies. It sparkled in the station's lights as it docked. Commander Jake Morrison watched from the control room and felt hope for the first time in hours. Captain Zara Keth stepped off the ship wearing full battle armor. Her crystal body was 7 feet tall and covered in protective plates that looked like diamonds. Behind her came 12 more crystal guards, each one a legendary warrior. "Commander Morrison," Captain Keth said, her voice ringing like musical bells. "We came as soon as we heard. Where is this creature?" Jake pointed to the security monitors. The Warbeast was in Section 9 now, moving through the shopping district. Bodies lay in its path. The creature seemed to be taking its time, almost like it was enjoying the hunt. "It's killed 43 people so far," Jake said. "Our weapons don't work. It's too strong, too smart." Captain Keth studied the monitors. Her crystal face showed no fear. "We have fought many dangerous creatures. Our harmonic weapons can shatter mountains. This beast will fall." The crystal guards moved through the station like liquid light. Their weapons hummed with power that made the air itself vibrate. Jake followed them, hoping that finally someone could stop the killing. They found the Warbeast in the main shopping area. It was standing over the body of a Nebulon family, its golden eyes scanning for more prey. When it saw the crystal guards, it tilted its head like a curious dog. "Formation 7, Captain Keth commanded. Her guards spread out in a perfect circle around the creature. The Warbeast watched them move. It seemed interested, not afraid. "Fire," Captain Keth ordered. The harmonic weapons screamed to life. Sound waves powerful enough to break steel hit the creature from all sides. The Warbeast staggered, and for a moment Jake thought they had won. Then the creature did something impossible. It listened to the sound, tilted its head again, and opened its mouth. A new sound came out, a deep rumble that matched the harmonic frequency exactly. The Crystal Guard's weapon stopped working. Impossible, Captain Keth whispered. The Warbeast had learned the frequency and was canceling it out with its own voice. In less than 2 minutes it had figured out how to defeat a weapon that had protected the Zephyrians for 1,000 years. The creature moved faster than anything that big should be able to move. It reached the first Crystal Guard before the warrior could react. The claws went through crystal armor like it was made of glass. Captain Keth and her remaining guards tried different frequencies, but the Warbeast adapted to each one. It was learning faster than they could change tactics. Within 10 minutes, half the Crystal Guards were dead. The rest retreated, carrying their wounded. "It studies us," Captain Keth said as they regrouped. "Each attack teaches it something new. We cannot fight something that learns this fast." Before Jake could respond, another ship docked at the station. This one was dark and covered in spikes. The hive speakers had arrived. Queen Buzz Click stepped off the ship with 50 of her warrior drones. The hive speakers looked like giant insects, but they were intelligent and fierce fighters. Their warrior drones were bred specifically for combat, with natural armor and weapons that could cut through almost anything. "The hive offers assistance," Queen Buzz Click said, her voice clicking and buzzing. "Our warriors fear nothing. This creature will be destroyed." The drone warriors moved like a swarm of angry bees. They were fast and worked together perfectly. Each drone knew what the others were thinking. They had defeated armies before. Jake watched on the monitors as the drones surrounded the Warbeast in the station's central hub. The creature stood in the middle of 50 perfect killing machines, and it looked almost bored. The drones attacked all at once. Their natural weapons sparked against the Warbeast's scales. The creature spun around, its 6 arms moving independently. Each arm fought a different group of drones. At first, the drones seemed to be winning. They were fast and coordinated. The Warbeast couldn't focus on all of them at once. But then Jake saw the creature change its tactics. It started fighting like the drones, moving and thinking like a hive mind. Within minutes, it was predicting their attacks and countering them perfectly. The Warbeast had learned how to fight like a hive speaker. One by one, the warrior drones fell. Their perfect coordination became useless when the enemy could predict every move. The creature tore through them like they were made of paper. Queen Buzz Click recalled the survivors. "This is not possible," she clicked frantically. "Our warriors have never been defeated this way. The creature fights like one of us, but better." Dr. Lisa Campbell had been watching everything from the science lab. She ran to join Jake and the alien commanders. "I've been studying the attack patterns," she said, pulling out her tablet. "The Warbeast isn't just learning how to fight each species, it's learning how they think. When it fought the Crystal Guards, it adapted to their technology. When it fought the drones, it started thinking like a hive mind." Captain Ron Blake of the human merchant ship Liberty's Edge had been listening to the communications. His ship was still docked, ready to evacuate civilians if needed. Now he joined the group in the control room. "So it gets smarter with every fight," Ron said. "What happens when it learns how humans think?" Nobody wanted to answer that question. The Nebulon peacekeepers tried next. They came with gas weapons that could put entire armies to sleep. The gas had worked on every known species. It should have been perfect. The Warbeast held its breath for 20 minutes while the gas filled the area around it. When the air finally cleared, the creature was still standing. It had learned to control its breathing. The Korath Energy Core brought their most powerful shield generators. They created an energy cage around the creature that nothing could break through. The Warbeast studied the energy patterns for 30 minutes. Then it touched the shield with one claw and somehow reversed the energy flow. The cage that was supposed to trap it became a weapon that it could control. Each failure made the creature stronger and smarter. It was learning not just how to fight different species, but how to use their own weapons against them. "We're making it worse," Dr. Campbell said. "Every time someone tries to stop it, the creature learns something new. At this rate, it will become unstoppable. Jake looked at the casualty reports. The death toll was over 100 now. The Warbeast was moving toward the residential sections where families lived. Soon it would reach the human quarters. We need to evacuate everyone, Jake said. Get them off the station before that thing learns how to hunt humans. But Captain Blake shook his head. My ship can hold maybe 50 people. The other human ships here can take another 100. What about the rest? There are over 3,000 humans on this station, plus all the other species. The station's AI, Atlas, spoke through the speakers. Commander Morrison, the creature has sealed the main docking bays. It appears to be preventing evacuation deliberately. Jake stared at the monitors. The Warbeast was standing in the main dock, blocking the exit routes. It had learned that prey tries to escape, so it had cut off their escape routes. It's not just hunting randomly anymore, Dr. Campbell said quietly. It's hurting us, keeping us trapped so it can kill us all at its own pace. The alien commanders looked at each other with growing fear. Their best warriors, their most advanced weapons, their centuries of military experience. None of it mattered. The Warbeast had defeated everything they could throw at it. Perhaps we should abandon the station, Queen Buzzclick suggested. Seal it and leave the creature trapped inside. There are still thousands of people here, Jake said firmly. I won't abandon them. Captain Keth's crystal face reflected the red emergency lights. Then we are all going to die. Nothing can stop this creature. It is the perfect predator. On the monitors, the Warbeast continued its slow hunt through the station. It was no longer in a hurry. It had learned that the prey had nowhere to go. Now it could take its time and enjoy the fear. Jake watched families running through the corridors trying to find somewhere safe to hide. But there was nowhere safe. The creature would find them all eventually. The most advanced species in the galaxy had tried their best weapons and tactics. All of them had failed. The Warbeast had proven that it was superior to every form of military might they possessed. In a few hours, everyone on Kepler Station would be dead, and the creature would be free to hunt across the galaxy. Nothing could stop it now. Dan Kelly wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the security monitor in his workshop. The red emergency lights made everything look like a nightmare. He had been fixing a broken mining drill when the alarm started. Now he was watching the most dangerous creature in the galaxy hunt through his home. Maria, bring Sophie here, Dan called to his wife. We need to stay together. Maria Kelly hurried into the workshop carrying their 7-year-old daughter. Sophie had her favorite stuffed animal tucked under one arm and looked more curious than scared. She had lived on Kepler Station her whole life and was used to seeing different kinds of aliens every day. Daddy, what's all the noise about? Sophie asked, pointing at the alarms. Dan knelt down to her level. There's a dangerous animal loose on the station, sweetheart. We need to stay in here where it's safe. The workshop was in the lower section of the station where Dan repaired heavy machinery. The walls were thick steel, built to contain explosions from broken equipment. If anywhere on the station was safe, this was it. Other families started arriving at the workshop. Word had spread quickly through the human community that Dan's place was the strongest shelter available. The Hendersons came first, carrying their twin babies. Then came old Mr. Frank Lopez, who ran the coffee shop, and the young couple Steve and Nancy Wright, who taught at the station school. But it wasn't just humans who came looking for safety. The Zephyrian family that owned the crystal shop arrived, their sparkling skin dim with fear. A group of Nebulon traders wheezed through their breathing masks as they asked for shelter. Even some hive speaker workers came, clicking nervously as they explained that their own shelters had been destroyed. Soon the workshop was crowded with over 30 beings from 6 different species. Everyone was scared, but they tried to help each other. The humans shared their food and water. The Zephyrians used their crystal abilities to strengthen the door locks. The Nebulons contributed their technical skills to improve the air systems. Sophie watched it all with wide eyes. She had never seen so many different people working together before. At school, different species usually stayed in their own groups. Now everyone was acting like one big family. Look, Daddy, Sophie said, pointing at a young hive speaker who was playing with the Henderson twins. Buzz Zick is making the babies laugh. Dan smiled despite the fear in his heart. His daughter had always been special with animals and aliens. While other human children sometimes felt nervous around the insect-like hive speakers or the gas-breathing nebulans, Sophie treated everyone the same. She had learned their names, played their games, and even picked up some of their languages. "Captain," Ron Blake's voice came through Dan's radio. "Dan, this is Ron. Are you folks okay down there?" "We're holding up," Dan replied. "Got about 30 people here. How bad is it out there?" "Bad. That thing has torn through everything the aliens threw at it. The Zephyrian crystal guards, the hive speaker warriors, even the Korath energy weapons. Nothing stops it." Maria put her arm around Sophie and pulled her close. "How long before help arrives?" "There is no help coming," Ron said quietly. "This creature is smarter than anything we've ever seen. It learns from every fight. By now it probably knows how to defeat any weapon in the galaxy." Sophie had been only half listening to the adult conversation. She was more interested in watching the security monitors that showed different parts of the station. While the grown-ups talked about weapons and escape plans, she studied the creature that was causing all the trouble. "Daddy, can I see the big animal better?" Sophie asked. Dan didn't want his daughter to see the Warbeast, but the monitor was too high for her to reach anyway. "Why do you want to see it, sweetheart?" "It looks lonely," Sophie said simply. The adults in the room stopped talking and stared at her. Lonely was not a word anyone had used to describe the killing machine that was hunting them. "Sophie, that thing is very dangerous," Maria said gently. "It's not lonely, it's trying to hurt people." But Sophie shook her head. "No, Mommy. Look at how it moves, it's like Rex." Rex had been Sophie's dog back on Earth before they moved to the station. He had been a big German shepherd who looked scary to strangers, but was really just a gentle giant who wanted to be loved. "Animals act mean when they're scared or confused," Sophie explained with the simple wisdom that only children possess. Rex used to growl at new people until they showed him they were friends. Dr. Lisa Campbell had made her way to the workshop during a brief, safe moment. She heard Sophie's comment and knelt down beside the little girl. "Sophie, this creature isn't like Rex," Dr. Campbell said carefully. "It was made to hurt people. That's all it knows how to do." Sophie looked at the doctor with serious eyes. "But who made it?" "An alien race called the Vorthak. They died a long time ago." "So it doesn't have a family anymore?" Sophie asked. Dr. Campbell paused. She had studied the Warbeast's history, but she had never thought about it from that angle. The Vorthak Empire had created these creatures to be weapons. When the Empire fell, the Warbeasts were left without purpose, without masters, without anyone to tell them what to do. "I suppose not," Dr. Campbell said slowly. Sophie nodded like this explained everything. "That's why it's acting bad. It doesn't know what it's supposed to do. Rex was like that when we first got him from the shelter. He bit people and broke things because he was scared and didn't understand the rules." The adults in the room exchanged glances. A 7-year-old girl was talking about the most dangerous predator in the galaxy like it was a confused pet. "Sophie," Dan said gently, "this isn't the same thing. Rex was a dog. This creature is a weapon." "But weapons need someone to use them," Sophie replied. "If nobody tells it what to do, maybe it's just trying to figure things out by itself." The monitor. They could see the Warbeast moving through the upper levels of the station. It was walking slower now, not rushing like before. Sometimes it would stop and look around, almost like it was searching for something. Dr. Campbell watched the creature's behavior with new eyes. Sophie might be onto something. The Warbeast had been created to follow orders from the Vorthak. Without those orders, without that structure, maybe it was trying to establish its own hierarchy. It's been testing everyone it meets, Dr. Campbell said thoughtfully. Every fight, every kill, it's trying to prove that it's the strongest. Maybe it's looking for someone who can give it purpose again. "Like an alpha?" Maria asked. She'd grown up with dogs too. "Exactly like an alpha," Dr. Campbell said, getting excited. "Pack animals need a leader. Without one, they become aggressive and unpredictable." Captain Blake's voice crackled over the radio again. Folks, I hate to break up the conversation, but that thing is heading your way. It's 3 levels up and moving down. You've got maybe 20 minutes. Fear filled the workshop again. Parents held their children closer. The aliens made nervous sounds in their own languages. Everyone knew that when the Warbeast reached them, the thick walls wouldn't matter. Nothing had been able to stop it so far. But Sophie wasn't afraid. She pressed her small hands against the monitor screen, studying the creature more carefully. "Want to help it," she said quietly. "Sophie, no," Maria said firmly. "That thing is too dangerous, it could hurt you." "But it doesn't want to hurt anyone," Sophie insisted. "It just doesn't know how to ask for what it needs. Look at its eyes." "Mommy, it's sad." Dan looked at the monitor. The Warbeast's golden eyes did look different now that Sophie mentioned it. Less angry, more confused, like it was searching for something it couldn't find. The creature was getting closer. Soon it would find their workshop, and then their makeshift. Family of humans and aliens would face the same fate as everyone else on the station. But Sophie wasn't giving up. She had an idea forming in her young mind, an idea that the adults would think was crazy, an idea that just might work. "Daddy," she said, looking up at Dan with determination. "I know what the big animal needs. It needs someone to be its friend." The lights in Dan Kelly's workshop flickered as something heavy hit the outer walls. Everyone inside went quiet. Even the babies stopped crying. They all knew what was coming. Another impact shook the room. Tools fell from shelves and crashed to the floor. The thick steel walls that Dan had trusted to keep them safe were starting to bend. "It found us," whispered Steve Wright, holding his wife Nancy close. On the security monitor, they could see the Warbeast standing outside their shelter. The creature was even bigger than Sophie had imagined. Its black scales reflected the emergency lights like a dark mirror. 6 powerful arms moved as it studied the workshop walls, looking for the best way to break inside. Dan grabbed his plasma rifle, even though he knew it wouldn't work. Other men in the room picked up tools that might serve as weapons. The Zephyrians began to glow with defensive energy. The hive speakers clicked nervously and prepared their natural weapons. "Stay back, Sophie," Maria said, pulling her daughter behind a heavy workbench. But Sophie wasn't listening. She was watching the monster, on the screen with eyes full of understanding instead of fear. The Warbeast raised one massive arm and punched the wall. The steel bent inward with a sound like thunder. Sparks flew from broken electrical systems. The lights went out for a moment, then came back on dimmer than before. Another punch. The wall cracked. Soon the creature would break through, and then everyone in the workshop would die just like all the others on the station. "We should try to fight it," Dan said, checking his weapon one more time. "No point," replied Captain Blake over the radio. "It's already learned how to beat every weapon we have. Fighting will just make it kill us faster." Dr. Campbell was studying her tablet, desperately searching for any information that might help. According to the old records, Warbeasts were controlled through dominance displays. The Vorthak used specific rituals to show authority. "What kind of rituals?" Dan asked. "I don't know. The records are incomplete, but it had something to do with body language and voice commands." The wall cracked wider. Through the gap, they could see one of the creature's burning golden eyes looking in at them. Some people screamed, others prayed in their own languages. Sophie slipped away from her mother while everyone was focused on the breaking wall. She was small and quiet, and in the chaos nobody noticed her moving toward the front of the workshop. The Warbeast hit the wall again. This time a whole section collapsed. Steel beams crashed down, and dust filled the air. When it cleared, there was a hole big enough for the creature to step through. The Warbeast pushed its massive head through the opening and looked around the workshop. Its golden eyes studied each person in turn. The creature seemed to be deciding who to kill first. Everyone pressed back against the far wall. Parents covered their children's eyes. The aliens made frightened sounds in their own languages. Even the bravest among them knew this was the end. The creature began to squeeze through the hole. Its black scales scraped against the twisted metal with a sound like fingernails on glass. Soon it would be fully inside, and the killing would begin. That's when Sophie stepped forward. "Sophie, no!" Maria screamed. Dan tried to reach for his daughter, but she was already too far away. The 7-year-old girl walked calmly toward the most dangerous creature in the galaxy. The Warbeast saw her coming and stopped moving. Its 6 arms went still. For the first time since it had broken free, the creature seemed surprised. Sophie was not running away or screaming or trying to hide. She was walking straight toward it like she was approaching a friend. The Warbeast tilted its massive head, confused by this behavior. "Sophie, get back here right now," Dan shouted, but his daughter ignored him. She stopped just a few feet from the creature's enormous head. The Warbeast was so big that even crouching down, its eyes were level with hers. Those burning golden eyes stared at the small human child who showed no fear. Sophie looked back at the creature with calm confidence. She had seen that look before, in every confused and frightened animal she had ever met. This wasn't a monster. This was just a very big, very lost creature that didn't know what it was supposed to do. "Hello?" Sophie said simply. "You look sad." The Warbeast blinked. Its head tilted further like a curious dog trying to understand a new sound. Everyone in the workshop held their breath. They were watching a 7-year-old girl have a conversation with a killing machine that had destroyed entire armies. "You don't have anyone to take care of you anymore, do you?" Sophie continued. "That's why you're acting mean. You're scared and you don't know the rules." The creature made a sound deep in its throat. Not a roar or a growl, but something softer. Almost like a whimper. Sophie nodded like she understood. "I know how that feels. When we moved to the station, I didn't know anyone either. Everything was different and scary." She took a small step closer. The adults behind her gasped, but the Warbeast didn't move to attack. It just kept staring at her with those burning eyes. "But then I learned that everyone here is nice if you're nice to them first," Sophie said. "Even the big scary-looking ones like Buzzzik are really gentle inside." Dr. Campbell watched in amazement. The child was treating the Warbeast exactly like she would treat any frightened animal. No weapons, no threats, no dominance displays. Just calm kindness and understanding. "You're looking for someone to tell you what to do, aren't you?" Sophie asked. "Someone to be your pack leader?" The Warbeast lowered its head until it was almost touching the floor. Sophie could see her reflection in its golden eyes. The creature was listening to every word she said. Sophie had learned about pack behavior from her old dog Rex and from watching the hive speakers work together. She knew that confused animals needed clear signals about who was in charge. They needed someone to give them rules and structure. "I can be your pack leader if you want," Sophie said gently. "But first you have to show me you understand the rules." She held out her small hand, palm down, in the gesture she had seen her father use with Rex when the dog was being disobedient. It was the universal sign of authority that worked with every animal she had ever met. "Sit," Sophie said firmly. The word hung in the air like magic. Everyone in the workshop stopped breathing. The emergency alarms seemed to fade away. Even the station itself felt like it was holding its breath. The Warbeast stared at Sophie's outstretched hand. Something deep in its mind recognized the gesture. For thousands of years, its species had been bred to respond to authority figures. The Vorthak were gone, but the programming remained. Slowly, like a mountain deciding to move, the Warbeast sat down. Its massive body settled onto the workshop floor with a sound like distant thunder. The creature that had defied armies, that had learned to defeat every weapon in the galaxy, had obeyed a simple command from a 7-year-old human girl. "Good," Sophie said, smiling. "That's very good." She reached up and gently touched the creature's massive head. The Warbeast closed its eyes and made that soft whimpering sound again. For the first time since waking up in the cargo container, it felt peaceful. The workshop was completely silent except for the quiet hum of the air recyclers. Everyone stared at the impossible scene in front of them. A child and a monster, sitting together like old friends. Sophie looked back at the amazed adults. "See? He just needed someone to be nice to him. He's not mean at all. He's just been very, very lonely." The Warbeast opened its golden eyes and looked around the workshop. But now, instead of seeing prey to hunt, it saw the pack that its new alpha had chosen. These were the beings it would protect, not destroy. Sophie Kelly, 7 years old and small enough to hide behind a workbench, had accomplished what all the galaxy's greatest warriors could not. She had tamed the untamable through the simple power of understanding and kindness. The most dangerous creature in the universe was no longer a monster. It was just a very big pet that finally had a home. News of what happened on Kepler Station spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within days, every major news network was telling the story of Sophie Kelly, the 7-year-old girl who tamed a warbeast with a single word. Dr. Lisa Campbell sat in her laboratory watching Sophie play with the creature she now called Rex. The massive beast followed the little girl around like a devoted pet. When Sophie threw a ball, Rex would carefully pick it up in his enormous claws and bring it back. When she got tired, Rex would lie down and let her use his scaled back as a chair. "It's remarkable," Dr. Campbell said into her recording device. "The subject shows complete loyalty to the child. All aggressive behavior has ceased. The creature appears to have formed a family bond." Commander Jake Morrison stood nearby, still amazed by what he was seeing. 3 weeks had passed since the incident, and he was still trying to understand how a child had solved a problem that defeated the galaxy's best military minds. "How is this possible?" Jake asked. "This thing killed over 100 people and now it's playing fetch." Dr. Campbell looked up from her notes. "Humans have something that other species don't understand. We've spent thousands of years living with animals, learning to communicate with them across species lines. Most aliens see other life forms as either allies, enemies, or resources. Humans see them as individuals who can be understood." Sophie giggled as Rex gently nudged her with his massive head. She scratched behind what might have been his ears, and the creature made a sound like a giant cat purring. "Rex was never really evil," Sophie explained to the adults watching. "He was just scared and confused. When you don't know the rules, you act out until someone teaches you better." Captain Ron Blake had delayed his departure to watch this miracle unfold. His ship was loaded with supplies, but he couldn't bring himself to leave. "This was the most important thing happening in the galaxy, Sophie," Ron said, kneeling down to her level. "Do you understand how special this is? Nobody has ever been able to control a warbeast before." Sophie shrugged like it was no big deal. "Rex isn't hard to control. You just have to be nice to him and show him what you want. He's really smart, you know. He learns things super fast." As if to prove her point, Rex began drawing patterns on the floor with one claw. The marks looked random at first, but Dr. Campbell realized they were symbols. Ancient Vorthak writing that scholars had been trying to decode for centuries. "He's trying to communicate," Dr. Campbell said excitedly. "The creature is showing us Vorthak language patterns." Sophie looked at the symbols and nodded. "Rex has been teaching me about his old family. The Vorthak weren't mean either. They were just scared of other people, so they made Rex and his friends to protect them." Over the following weeks, more ships arrived at Kepler Station. Scientists came from across the galaxy to study the impossible partnership between human and warbeast. Politicians came to understand what this meant for interstellar relations. Military leaders came to see if they could learn human methods of animal control. But, most importantly, other families came. Word had spread that humans had a special gift for understanding dangerous creatures, and soon Kepler Station became a refuge for beings that other species considered too dangerous to approach. A crystalline worm that had been terrorizing shipping lanes was brought in chains. Sophie spent an afternoon with it and discovered that it was only attacking ships because it was looking for its missing eggs. Once they helped it find its babies, the worm became as gentle as Rex, a pack of shadow stalkers that had been killing colonists turned out to be trying to warn people about a coming volcanic eruption. The creatures couldn't speak any known language, but Sophie learned to understand their movements and helped translate their message. Each success made humanity's reputation grow. Species that had dismissed humans as primitive newcomers suddenly saw them as valuable allies with unique abilities. Dan and Maria Kelly found themselves at the center of galactic attention. Their quiet life as station residents had been turned upside down, but they were proud of their daughter's gift. "I never imagined Sophie would become famous across the galaxy," Maria said to a reporter from the Galactic News Network. "But I'm not surprised she can talk to animals. She's always been special that way." Dan had been offered jobs building facilities for dangerous creature rehabilitation on a dozen different worlds. "We're thinking about it," he told the reporters. But Sophie should decide where she wants to go. This is her gift, not ours. The Kelly Institute for Interspecies Communication was established 6 months later. It was built on Kepler Station, with Sophie as its youngest and most important researcher. The institute became a place where beings could bring dangerous or misunderstood creatures to learn better ways of living together. Rex became Sophie's permanent partner and the institute's first success story. The former weapon of mass destruction now helped train other dangerous creatures, showing them by example how to live peacefully with different species. Dr. Campbell was appointed as the institute's head scientist. She worked with Sophie to develop new methods for understanding creature behavior across species lines. Their techniques became standard throughout the galaxy. The key is empathy, Dr. Campbell explained in her lectures. Humans don't just see other creatures as things to be controlled or feared. They see them as individuals with feelings, needs, and the capacity to change. Captain Blake became the Institute's transportation coordinator, bringing dangerous creatures from across the galaxy to receive help. His ship was specially modified with safe containment systems designed by Dan Kelly. "Every creature we bring here has the same story," Blake told visitors. "They're not evil or broken. They're just lost, like Rex was. Sophie helps them find their way home." As Sophie grew older, her abilities became even more remarkable. She learned to communicate with gas-based life forms that existed in nebulae, crystal beings that lived in asteroid fields, and energy creatures that swam through stars. Each new encounter expanded humanity's understanding of what life could be. The Institute's success changed how the galaxy thought about dangerous creatures. Instead of destroying threats, civilizations began trying to understand them. Wars between species became rare, as beings learned to see their enemies as potential friends who simply needed better communication. Sophie, now 9 years old, sat in her laboratory working on translating ancient Vorthak poetry that Rex had remembered. The former killing machine carefully held delicate writing instruments in his massive claws, helping her understand the artistic soul of his vanished creators. Rex says the Vorthak used to write poems about loneliness, Sophie told Dr. Campbell. They made the Warbeasts because they were afraid of being alone in the universe, but they never learned that other people wanted to be friends. Dr. Campbell smiled as she watched the girl and the creature work together. And now they're not alone anymore. A message arrived on Sophie's communication device from a distant star system. Another impossible creature had been discovered, something that defied all known science and threatened an entire colony. The local authorities were requesting Sophie's help. Sophie looked at the message, and then at Rex. The great beast rumbled softly. A sound she had learned meant he was ready for adventure. "Want to go help some more friends?" Sophie asked. Rex stood up and moved toward the transport bay, his golden eyes bright with purpose. Sophie followed, already thinking about what they might find and how they could help. As their ship launched from Kepler Station, Sophie looked back at the institute that had become her home. Every day brought new challenges, new creatures that needed understanding, and new opportunities to prove that friendship was stronger than fear. The galaxy was full of wonders waiting to be discovered, and Sophie Kelly was ready to find them all. With Rex by her side, no creature was too dangerous, no problem too difficult, and no being too frightening to deserve a chance at friendship. The universe had learned that sometimes the smallest voice could speak the loudest truth, and the gentlest heart could tame the wildest beast.